All right, diving right in, you guys sent in some really interesting stuff from this book. What kind of thinker, how successful people think, and today we're gonna, break it down.
Yeah, it's a fascinating look at like the mechanics of thinking. Not so much telling you what to think, but how to think.
Right. It's like giving you the tools, the mental
Well,
toolkit.
exactly. And this source, it lays out 11 like distinct thinking skills that it says successful people use.
11. That's a lot to unpack. So, what are we looking at here?
Well, it starts with big picture thinking, seeing the whole landscape.
Okay, I can see that being important.
Oh, yeah. But then you also need that focused thinking, zeroing in on the details.
Right, so it's like you need both, the zoom out and the zoom in.
Absolutely. And then you've got your creative thinking, right? Coming up with the new ideas. But you also need that realistic thinking to kind of keep things grounded.
Balance, yeah.
Yeah, balance. And then strategic thinking. That's your long game, the planning ahead.
I feel like some people are just naturally good at that.
Some are, for sure. But the book argues, like, it's a skill you can develop too.
Interesting. Okay, so what else is in this mental toolkit?
Well, we've also got possibility thinking, you know, exploring all the what ifs.
You like that?
Yeah, it's about being open. And then there's reflective thinking, which is kind of taking that step back to analyze.
Introspection, I guess.
Exactly. And then, this one's interesting, unpopular thinking, being willing to challenge the norm.
Oh, I can see how that would be valuable, especially if you're trying to innovate.
Right. And then you've got your shared thinking, collaboration, basically.
Working together. Okay, so what about the last two?
Unselfish thinking, considering others and bottom line thinking, being focused on results.
So it really is a full spectrum of approaches.
It is. And to help you figure out where you fall on that spectrum, the source actually has this self-assessment activity.
Oh, that's cool. Like a quiz.
Kind of. It's more like you go through this list of adjectives and mark whether each one describes you or not.
Okay, so how does that work?
So you take an adjective like altruistic. That'd be like for unselfish thinking, right? If you think it describes you, you put a plus. If not, a minus.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And the list is like super diverse. You've got your generous, pensive, approachable, all in the mix.
I bet some of them are tough to decide on.
For sure. And then you've got words that are more action-oriented, like goal-oriented or planner. Those would be linked to like strategic thinking.
Oh, that's interesting. It's making me think about my own, tendencies.
Exactly. And it goes on. You've got your artistic, innovative, practical, even brainstormer.
Wow, so many different facets.
Right. And it keeps going. Inquisitive, restrained, broad-minded, intentional.
So how do you connect all these adjectives back to the different thinking skills?
That's the clever part. Each adjective has a little number next to it, 1 through 11, matching those 11 thinking types.
Okay, that makes sense. So like if I see myself in a lot of the words with a 3 next to them.
That could mean you're naturally strong in creative thinking.
Cool. But what if I have like mostly minuses by, say, number 5?
Well, then maybe strategic thinking is an area you could work on.
That makes sense. And what about if I don't really feel strongly one way or the other?
The source says if you leave a word unmarked, that's probably an average area for you, which means there's still room to improve.
So no matter what, there's something to learn.
Right. And what I think is really cool is that the source, it also talks about how, you don't have to be good at all 11 types of thinking by yourself.
That's a relief.
Right. Like that's where shared thinking comes in, working with people who have different strengths than you.
Oh yeah, teamwork makes the dream work, as they say.
Exactly. So even if you identify some areas where you're not as strong, you can still be super successful by collaborating.
That's a good point. But even if I feel pretty good about a certain type of thinking, it's probably still worth checking out that chapter.
Oh, absolutely. Like even if you think you're a natural at, say, big picture thinking, there are always nuances and new insights you can gain from reading about it.
Makes sense.
It's all about continuous improvement, right?
So big picture, this source is really giving us a framework to understand these 11 different ways of thinking. And then with the self-assessment, we can kind of see where we fall on that spectrum.
Exactly. And I think the takeaway here is like recognizing the value of all these different approaches.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So for everyone listening, I want to leave you with this. Think about those 11 thinking styles. Which ones do you already gravitate towards? And maybe even more importantly, which ones, regardless of how you scored on that self-assessment, which ones could really make a difference in your life if you actively tried to develop them. Something to ponder.
Yeah.
Thanks for diving in with us today.